Hello and welcome to the 38th video of the Project Sovereign series. In this video, I'll create the Sovereign's propulsion lighting including the warp nacelles, impulse engines, and navigational deflector. I think you'll especially enjoy this part of the process, so let's get started. I wanted to start off with the Bussard Collectors, and I had to do a lot of tweaking and experimenting to get pretty close to what I saw on the movie screen. So I didn't want to film that process just because it was really painstaking and tiresome, but I do want to show you my end results. So here they are in the render window, and I'll show you the material, and it's got some advantages to it too. So here is the material in all of its glory, and what I ended up doing was I took these colors from a screenshot, so they're screen accurate, and I plugged them into this dent map, which you can just barely see because it's scaled so large. And this dent map is blended with this other dent map, if that makes any sense. There are two different color patterns here, and they are both plugged into this mix map, and then finally the mix map is plugged into the self-illumination node and also into the diffuse color node. And I'll show you what happens if I take that out of the diffuse color node. You're probably asking, like, why is that plugged in there? And it looks okay for now, but if I turn up the light, the ambient light of the scene, say I want to do a brighter render, you can see it starts to get washed out, right? And that's not terribly good looking. So what I ended up doing was plugging this into the diffuse channel. There we go. Now we get a much more saturated, realistic look. So I want to be prepared for that eventuality too. But the best part is, I'm just going to turn this down really quick. The best part is, because it's a dent map, I'll be able to animate it, right? So I'll double click on this dent map, and you see this angle. If I rotate it, see how it looks like it's flowing like it does in the movie? And cooler still, since it's two separate maps, I can do the other one in the other direction. So you see that? So it could look like it's moving in two different directions at once, give it a much more interesting and I think screen accurate look. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to stick with this. I think it'll come out nice in still renders and in animations. Now to make the warp grills, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a material for the black parts. So this could be a good kind of primer on how to make a basic Corona material. So just going to bring this in. I can name it. All right. Set reflection to 1. And I'm going to set the glossiness after. Right now it's going to be a dark color, but not black. I don't want it to be completely black. That's actually probably pretty good, maybe like 8. I just want it to be dark. Okay. And it's not going to be that glossy. Probably like a point, it will be fine. Again, all this stuff is, I could just adjust it later. Assign it to the selection. There we go. See how it looks in the render preview. Probably turn that reflectivity down a bit. There, just to tone it down a little. So the only thing left to do now to make these illuminated is to select the proper polygons in order to do so, and I'll be back with that selection, and then I'll make the illuminated material. Okay, so now with the proper polygon selected, you can kind of get a preview as to how this is going to look. So all that's left to do is to create my illuminated material. So let me hide all of these, and I'll just bring in a new material. Call it Nacelle Grill Glow. And this will just be a basic kind of translucent plastic, just in case I ever want to render it. If, you know, the power went down and the grills are off, I'll always be prepared for that. So I'll set my reflection again to 1. This color should be fine, and glossiness 0.6. 0.7. There we go. Let's give it a nice little sheen. Actually, you know what? I'll set it to 0.8 so it matches the other material. And now all that's left to do is turn on my self-illumination. So choose a color. Let's see, something like that. Maybe a bit more like that. And again, always can be tweaked. Give it a multiplier of 1. And assign material to selection. Let's get a look at how that looks. Pretty nice. Can maybe oversaturate it a bit more. Just to get it a bit more to what it looks like in the movie. Make it a bit brighter. So there we go. That'll do for now. I'm going to save this. And put my symmetry on. And end isolate. There we go. Now it's starting to look like a spaceship. So pretty pleased with this. This really starts to bring it together and bring it to life. So the next thing that I'm going to illuminate will be the main deflector dish. So I don't know if you remember during the construction of the deflector dish video, I was worried that I was going to have to drill a hole into the actual hull of this, and I didn't want to do that. It's just going to mess up the mesh. And I didn't want to have to deal with all that cleanup and everything. So I'm going to try it just by using a light and seeing if I could place it just behind the outer rim of this. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let me create a disc light. Just like so. And I can align it with this and make it, there we go. So like that. And I'll just bring it forward, set it to local. So now I can move it at its local axes. Bring it forward. Okay, obviously, obviously a lot of adjustment needs to be done. So, of course, going to bring the radius down first and foremost. Here we go. And what I want to do is I want to give it the same color that it had in the movie. So I actually got a sample of the color. So what I can do is bring in my map. Just a bitmap. And deflector, PNG. And then plug it into the text map slot as an instance. Okay, the intensity needs to come way down. It's starting to get there. Maybe I'll bring the saturation up. The color is from the screen, but I have to deal with the fact that it's shining through another material. So let me bring in my color correction. And leash the color correction into here as instance. And let's see. There we go. Might be a bit too much. I think that's going to look fine. And another thing that I want to do is give this outer edge a bit more. See, it's already here a little bit, but I want to give it a bit more gradient, a little bit more fade, so it doesn't just look like a big solid light. So I can turn the radius down. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Now we'll call this Sovereign Light Deflector. Remember my naming scheme. So everything is nice and organized. And I think it's going to do it. That's just that simple. Really happy that this turned out this way. I didn't have to do a whole thing with cutting out meshes for light cans and stuff like that. It just works like this. So that'll do it for this part of the ship. Last but not least will be the impulse engines. Back in the video where I built these impulse engines, I used a simple illuminated texture just to see what it would look like. But I prefer the look of having a real light source embedded inside, just like the real model. So very much like the deflector dish, I'm just going to create an impulse engine light. So my Corona disc light, like this, and turn it over. Because I want to make sure that these are the rays. So I know that this is the side that's rejecting light. I want to make sure that these are pointing up, so of course you'll be able to see the light. And I'll just align it. My impulse engine. See how that looks. Okay. Of course I want to choose a red color. Maybe a bit more orange. And again, I always can tweak this. And I'll just adjust it. Set it to local. So it's got its own set of coordinates. Make its radius larger. And make it a bit brighter too. Too much. Lower it to be a bit more diffuse. All these little adjustments. Best part of any build, if you ask me. And as I stated earlier, the louvers are going to be a texture. I didn't want to build them into the model because it could create weird smoothing error and artifacts. I think it's just easier to build a texture and map it on there. But this is looking pretty good for now. So I'm going to, of course, call this Sovereign Light Impulse. I'm going to call this one Starboard. Great. Set the coordinate system back to view. Copy this. I'll make this an instance. Call it port. Oh, look at that, it was pretty close. And okay, and then paste. There we go. And there we go. So much fun. I just love this part of the process. Now it's starting to look like a real spaceship. Before ending this video, I just wanted to make an addendum. I forgot a spotlight from the last video. This one's pretty subtle, so I missed it. I used to think this was just light coming through this part right here. Just ambient light coming through here, but it's actually a spotlight because I looked at other references and sure enough it's still there. I'm guessing it's just a way to light. There's going to be a pennant right here. So I'm guessing it's just like kind of a weird way. Usually they're lit from the side or sort of above, but it's lit from up here. So I just wanted to include this in the video too. So this concludes this stage of the lighting of the model, but we're not done yet because of course we need to start doing the interiors. So in the next video, I'll start to get to work on that. But for now, a lot of work done. I think the lighting is so much fun because there's just a lot of instant gratification that comes with it. But the interiors, of course, are going to be a lot more toil because they're going to be semi-detailed. And there are indeed a lot of windows on this starship. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon.